Okay, so you're stressed, you're fatigued, you're physically and emotionally burnt out. I am so sorry. I 100% empathize. I get it. And you are not crazy, but this is not normal. And there are root causes for why this is happening. And I'm going to explain in this video why it is so important to target the mitochondria when you're trying to recover from this extreme burnout. Before we get started, I want to explain a little backstory of why the mitochondria are so near and dear to my heart and why I love holistic health and helping people get healthy and get to the bottom line of chronic fatigue. So, first of all, my dad died when I was only 9 years old. It left my mom at 36 with three young children, me being nine, my sister six, and my brother four. And at this age, I just totally understood life is sacred. And while some of my friends didn't completely get it because we were young, in middle school, people were doing silly things like cutting themselves. I was really viewing life as this complete sacred thing that it could be gone at any moment. So I was so determined from a young age to live life to the fullest. And that led me down a path of holistic health. When I was in college, I started a personal training business. And I did that for a couple years and quickly realized that I was a little bit more interested in nutrition. And at some point, I was like, I'm going to just get rid of everything. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to figure out my purpose in life. And I ended up at this holistic health institute called Hippocrates Institute. And I learned about a raw vegan diet. I learned about juicing. I learned about supplements. I learned about holistic health to the 9 yards. And I lived and breathed it. People that have chronic illnesses like cancer go there and they see all kinds of hope and healing. And so for me, that was such an eye opener that people can actually heal. That gave me this burning desire to want to learn more, to want to go down this rabbit hole of how can I really help people get to the bottom line of their chronic illnesses. And I found myself at Trinity School of Natural Health studying my naturopathic doctorate amongst all these other certifications. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of list, but I ended up meeting my husband at the time, quickly fell in love and realized that we were totally aligned. He even studied at Hippocrates Health Institute too and had a holistic business like I was trying to start. So it was just so aligned. And, the interesting thing is he also was legally blind. Man, was this guy handsome, I have to say. So I didn't think twice about how he was. I just loved him. And he was on his own healing journey. He was trying to figure out how do I recover from this blindness? He got it when he was 27 years old. And they said it was a mitochondrial dysfunction problem and that it could be inherited from the mother's line, and his whole life changed. And so he was there trying to heal himself, and I was exploring the world trying to figure out what my purpose was in life and trying to figure out how to help chronically ill people. And in the midst of that, I found myself absolutely chronically fatigued. And at that time, I was going through a bunch of trauma at home. I didn't realize that could be actually a root of why I was so fatigued too. So I was going down my detox journey. I was doing a bunch of parasite cleanses and liver cleanses and chemical detoxes. And one thing led to a next. And I ended up finding myself working for this company called Cellcore Biosciences. And that experience just really opened my eyes to the whole world of the mitochondria. And they basically said, if you want to get to the bottom line of chronic illness, you need to figure out why the mitochondria have become dysfunctional. Because if you can heal the mitochondria, if your body can create energy, then it will heal itself. And that has been the center of every single thing that I have done. It's what is causing the mitochondria to become dysfunctional. So at some point, as I was trying to figure out how do I heal myself, how do I heal my husband, he actually was experiencing some really extreme gut challenges that were um, it was beyond my knowledge at the time of how to fix, and no one could figure out what was going on. And so we're going down the rabbit hole and doing functional medicine and all this stuff. And finally, I learned muscle testing. I go to a Cellcore event and they teach me how to do Dr. Alan Lindsay's muscle testing kit, which I have right here. It is amazing. And this instantly started taking my health, personal health to a whole nother level. My clients' health, at that point, I started working with clients to a whole nother level. I found myself though, even though we were moving out some big pathogens and parasites, I personally kept having a parasite problem. And so at some point, I literally was like, God, what is the answer? Like, why do I keep passing these parasites? And he was basically like, you need to fix the frequency. So frequency work was a bit beyond me at that point. At that time, I knew that there was a reason why these parasites were growing in terms of the chemical toxicity. Cellcore was really good at teaching us that part of it, but I had absolutely no clue about how trapped stress and trauma, and even inherited trapped stress and trauma, could totally affect your mitochondria, your energy production. Even current stress living at home and going through different layers of trauma with the family could be even causing my mitochondria to be depleted. So that led me down a whole rabbit hole of studying every book that I could study about frequency. I took a biofield tuning training. I did emotion code. I did body code. I started implementing these things with my clients and quickly realized that I was getting quantum leaps with my clients. I was also seeing my husband's gut challenges start to turn around for the first time. It wasn't completely done yet, but it was like the first glimmer of hope after several years of really, really concern. I all I wanted was to fall in love. All I wanted was to get married at that point in my life. And I finally find someone, and he was really not doing good. And all I could think about all the time was like, how do I save this guy's life in the midst of I'm trying to help other people get healthy? So it was even traumatizing for myself just going through all that at that time too. So I kept doing my emotion work on myself and my husband. And I also kept tracking and tracing our muscle testing assessment here. And I finally got my personal assessment down to everything was zero. And at that point, the mom clock started clicking. I was starting to get to my mid 30s, and I was like, okay, let's go. And I decided to conceive. And right away, I conceived. I really felt like my life was on hold for a long time. I felt like I was late to get married and late to have children. And finally, I'm like, okay, let's go. And I conceived. I ended up having a healthy baby, and he's happy. He's 3 years old now. But in that process of postpartum, wow, was the burnout real? It's amazing how we can peel several layers of emotional trauma and go through a whole new life experience to realize there's a lot more. I look at dealing with stress and trauma and digesting that on a frequency level to heal and get to another whole level of mitochondrial dysfunction. It's like a mirror in our face when we go through different times of trial and tribulation. It's kind of like looking in a mirror and saying, "Oh, there's that still, there's that still, there's that still." And so there was a point where I did a hair tissue mineral analysis, which I am going to talk about in a few minutes here. My adrenal glands on the hair tissue mineral analysis were tanked. I was talking to my other friend who is an expert in hair tissue mineral analysis, and she wasn't like, oh, you need, XYZ minerals. Well, I mean, that was probably part of it, but she was like, I know why you are burnt out. And she started talking about all the other lifestyle stuff going on. And I just knew I was in tears, and I knew I was like, I can't live like this. The stress that I'm experiencing, the not sleeping, the trying to push myself too hard with this business. I was trying to live the same way that I was living before I had a baby. And it was causing a lot of stress on me, a lot of stress on my marriage. And there was just many layers of stress. And then on top of that, I had other family members that were chronically ill and had cancer that were close to me too. So this was a huge wake up call for me personally about exhaustion, fatigue, burnout, that your whole life really does affect your energy. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, duh. It's not just about the bugs, it's not just about the toxins, it's not even trauma that we've experienced in the past. It's literally what's currently going on right now. And we can literally just be draining away our vital reserves and keeping our body in a state of fight or flight when we aren't really paying attention, and also paying attention to our seasons of rest and paying attention to our seasons of work. Just because you get tired once in a while doesn't mean that you are lazy, or you might have not been paying attention to your rest cycles. Like postpartum should have been a rest cycle for me. And yet I was still going. I was still going like I was the practitioner and business owner like I was before. And or at least trying. It's really hard when you're not sleeping, your brain's not completely working because of it, and you're trying to adjust to a new life with a baby. So I literally looked at my whole business and I was like, what can I make easier? I got rid of the shipping department. I started going through things on my website. I just started making things a lot more efficient, even the way I do my consultations with clients. And I had to say, after a year, I did feel better. I felt much better. I felt much more in order with my business. I felt much better about my marriage. I felt much better about my personal health. But it wasn't completely fixed at that point. I wasn't done. And this is healing for you. I'm sharing this story because healing is a process and there's a lot of root cause layers that need to be uncovered. And because of postpartum and trying to just survive, basically, I was living off of caffeine. Now, I wasn't drinking coffee all day or anything, but I did have some coffee in the morning, maybe some tea in the afternoon. But that was enough for me on top of the burnout I was already experiencing and depletion to keep myself in a state where I was continuing to deplete myself. So because I found myself not completely well, at some point I was like, I'm just going to pull the plug. I'm going to take out the caffeine. I'm going to do a caffeine fast. And wow, did it expose how tired I was. So these are the things that I talk about with my clients, uncovering each layer, looking at this thing and that thing. We're going to go through a chart where you could see all these different things that can cause the mitochondrial to be dysfunctional. And so I pulled the plug on the caffeine and I took a couple weeks to rest. And boy, did I need it. Also, boy, did the demons come out around me. I'll tell you this, when you take steps to take care of yourself, you will find sometimes that people around you do not get it. And this whole rest thing, I realize, is a very bad cultural imbalance. We are taught to just go, and we are taught that women should be just like men. And, even when we go through a big thing like birthing a baby, that, okay, you should just get up and go. I mean, I can't tell you some of the stories my aunts have told me about, their husbands telling them to get back to work. And it's like, I just went through this traumatizing birth. I personally didn't have the most traumatizing birth. I chose to go all natural and I had a 5-day labor, but I delivered naturally. I recovered pretty well. And I was like, okay, let's get back to work. But people that go through traditional medical systems that aren't done in a very natural way tend to traumatize people like my family. When other family members don't quite get how bad someone is feeling, they can just make them feel guilty. Like you got to get up and work again. And women really need that time to take care of themselves. Like women really need to be nourished during that time. So, anyways, I just realized this whole culture is upside down when it comes to birthing, and that might be a whole nother show in of itself. But my basic point is that I finally was ready to get resting, and I just could feel the tension around me that, like, why am I doing this? And it just makes me want to cry inside when I think about how our society just doesn't get this, that sometimes we really, really need to rest and honor that. And so I did my rest. I did a bunch of tuning during that time. I balanced my frequencies more. I found a lot of different other root causes of what was going on because I actually paused to take care of myself. Of course, I came out feeling better. And I'm doing this video. So it is so important to realize how much you matter in this world, how much God loves you, how much your life is so important to do all the things that you need to do. I'm not going to lie, it has taken me lots of money to figure out these answers, to try all these different things, to try all these different supplements, to try all these different protocols, to try all these different detox things, to build my detox house, to have my water filters. But I could tell you this, I feel at peace being in my own home, not living near Wi Fi's, having clean water, eating the most organic, fresh food from the farm that's next to me, like taking the time to really know how to live a holistic lifestyle because this world it's crazy. The things that they're putting in our food, in our air, in our water. I really hope that this is not a forever situation, but this is what we're in. And I think it's going to take a lot of cleanup. And this is why people are sick. People have toxins. People have emotional trauma. People have all kinds of stuff. We're going to go through this chart in just a second here, and I'm going to show you different things that can cause mitochondrial dysfunction. But I think it's important to touch on how, yes, this can cost you some money, but how much is your life worth to you? How much is enjoying your life, being able to thrive, being able to be able to show up for your family? Being able to play with your kids, being able to know that you can grow old and be okay. These things to me are priceless. While people my age have been probably investing more money in their investments and their stock, their IRAs and all that, I've been investing in my health. And I will tell you, when people have chronic health challenges, it will totally knock them over if they have not been taking care of themselves. I feel like the moral of the story really is truly grasping how much you value yourself. Because I came from humble beginnings with this business and with my finances and dealing with all this chronic illness with me and my husband at a young age. But I was so determined to figure out the answers. And one by one, God just kept showing me this layer and that layer. And I just feel really blessed that I've been able to conceive naturally when I wanted, when I was ready right away, that I feel better, that my husband feels better, and we're living a truly rich, abundant life, and we're happy. So the point is, where there's a will, there's a way. Every time I was like, okay, I got to get a new filter. I got to do this. I got to do that. I was like, okay, vision board. I'm going to save for this. I'm going to save for that. Didn't come overnight, but God is so good and God will make a way where it seems to be no way sometimes.
Are you ready to reclaim your health and revitalize your life? Well, I've got something that's going to change the way you feel forever. Imagine waking up each day with boundless energy, mental clarity, and emotional balance. It's not a dream, it's within your reach. Introducing the free detox checklist, your ultimate guide to a toxin-free lifestyle. This exclusive 11-point detoxification checklist is your key to a fresh start, and exactly what I wish I had when I first started my detox journey. It will help you effortlessly identify the biggest source of toxins in your life. You'll learn how to purify the air you breathe, uncover the ultimate solution for cleaner, pure water, and start drinking confidently. Say goodbye to uncertainty when sourcing real wholesome food and choosing the most effective supplements. Embrace holistic beauty products for a radiant, toxin-free glow that will turn heads. Explore natural oral care solutions for a sparkling smile and revolutionize your cleaning routine with natural supplies. Safeguard yourself from harmful EMFs and elevate your well-being through mindful choices for bedding and clothing. Dive into the art of cleansing your body, mind, and emotions, unlocking a whole new you. Imagine waking up every day to boundless energy, mental clarity, and emotional balance every single day. It's all within your reach with the secrets enclosed in this comprehensive detox checklist. Ready to start your journey toward a toxin-free life? Click the link below and grab your free detox checklist now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to reclaim your health.
So let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more of the mitochondria, but I wanted you to truly grasp the depth of why this is important, how this came about, and why it's so life-changing. All right, so let's talk about mitochondrial dysfunction. First of all, mitochondrial dysfunction is basically the mitochondria have become dysfunctional. So what's the cause of it becoming dysfunctional? Why is it not working? Why is it not producing the energy your body needs to heal? So here's a group of different things that could be the problem. In general, a lot of this can be grouped into pathogens, and a lot of it can be grouped into toxins. And then the other side of it is if you don't have too much of a good thing. So we have nutritional deficiencies. And then there's the energetic side, and that's where things like toxic emotions can lie. So let's break down the pathogens a little bit. So in the last few years since I've been doing this work, parasite cleansing has gone through the roof. A lot of people have come to the awareness that there's these critters in our body that we need to pass and get rid of if we're going to heal. And it's kind of come with a shock for a lot of people, but it's a real thing. Parasites like to grow in chaos. So we always are discussing what is causing chaos in the body when we're thinking about parasites. Parasites are like little worms. And it's basically something that feeds off your body. And it also leaves a residual waste too called a biotoxin. So it's like they basically poop in our body. And a lot of these different types of pathogens, like mold and candida, they all have different types of biotoxins that they secrete too. And those also cause mitochondrial dysfunction. Some people will say that is it really the bug that's the problem or is it the biotoxin that is causing the problem? I think in different ways both can be a problem. So then there's fungus and mold. I have to say, if there's anything I never want to deal with, is a huge mold problem in my house because I have seen the most horrendous stories with people having to tear their whole house up. And wow, does that cost a lot of money and time? And then you feel like you're in chaos living in this place that is all torn up. And again, it can cost a lot of money. So some people just feel very stuck in those situations. But again, I always like to leave people with hope. Where there's a will, there's a way. Sometimes these things seem very, very hard to deal with, but I do believe God is bigger. The next thing that we have is bacteria. People can have things like SIBO, an overgrowth of bacteria in their small intestine. This overgrowth of bacteria can be anywhere in the body, really. A lot of people do not have enough probiotic bacteria. The bad bacteria tend to proliferate because of that as well, too, and these other pathogens. And there's a reason why the probiotic bacteria tends to be low, too. So that would be more like a nutritional deficiency that the probiotics are low. A big reason why the probiotics are low in people is because of the toxins. And then also stress and trauma can lower your probiotic bacteria too. So we're going to get to that in a bit here. Candida is another, and we do have some candida in our body. We have a lot of these different types of what I'm calling pathogens, talking about when it gets into a state where they're overgrowing and becoming a problem in the body. But a lot of these things do exist in our body already. The question is, why are they overgrowing? Why is it becoming a problem in the body? So the body's always trying to seek harmony. And when it's in chaos in any sort of way, it will cause these pathogens to overgrow. So candida is another one of those. Depression tends to be something that I find linked to candida, but there could be other toxins as well too that could be causing the problem. So these pathogens aren't just growing for no reason. A lot of times in root cause medicine, people are like, "Oh, it's the bug that's the problem. Let's kill the bug." And I'm like, there's a reason. There's a reason why it's overgrowing. So you have to keep asking why. And then we got viruses. From my understanding of viruses, they are a signal that the body is trying to deal with something that is off. Some people think they're exosomes. Nonetheless, it's something that I still think about when we are going through our list of things that could be causing a problem now. Things like the EB virus are very, very draining on people. But again, is it the virus that's the problem, or is it the reason why the virus is there? That's the problem. That's what we really need to be asking. And things like EMF can be a big trigger for these viruses to be overgrowing. Let's see, blood sugar imbalances, if we are not eating a proper diet, if we are eating fake foods, but also if we are eating too much sugar. Blood sugar imbalances could even be because your minerals could be imbalanced too. And there's various reasons why that could be happening as well. So blood sugar imbalances can cause mitochondrial dysfunction too. People that are diabetic could probably resonate with this because they might find that there's certain times where they just feel so fatigued when their blood sugar's imbalanced. And then nutritional deficiencies. If you're low on anything, really the body's not going to function correctly. Most important thing at some point in our healing journey is making sure that you're raising all your nutrients and making sure that they are in order, they're not deficient. Certain ones tend to become more depleted in under stress, like your water soluble vitamins like vitamin B and C, but in general, you'll also find that zinc, magnesium, those ones tend to become depleted too under stress. I made this as spiritual toxins when I initially created this slide. Spiritual stuff in general, whatever you want to call it in other dimensions. I think this is very related to our frequencies being imbalanced. So toxic emotions is kind of where I group the frequency stuff. When our frequencies are imbalanced, when our biofield has rips and tears and holes and it's sludgy areas, then I think we become more of a magnet to things that are not in harmony in other dimensions as well. So if you want to think about that as spiritual toxins, that's that. At our core, the more that we're balanced in our body's biochemistry, the more that our frequencies are balanced, we should probably find that we're not being a magnet to these different, if you want to call it demons or whatever it is in other dimensions that could be causing us to be drained as well. It's kind of like how I think about parasites now. If you get rid of the frequency that's causing the parasites, and the parasites go. If you get rid of the frequency that's causing the demons or whatever you call it in other dimensions that are latching on to people, then they will go too. Inflammation is another thing that can cause these mitochondria to become dysfunctional. Again, the question is, why is there the inflammation? So, are you eating an inflammatory diet? Do you have a stressful job? You'll see in the lifestyle scan where sometimes people are really not in alignment with their job. I actually have had a couple clients where I'm just like, this is not good for you. And after peeling several layers of trap stress and trauma, they finally wake up and they're like, I need to get out of here. That could be a hard conversation and pill to swallow at first, but we really have to look at the whole person and not just look at these labs and find, oh, we have parasites, we have toxins. There's reasons again. So, of course, now we get to what we're about to get to. I should say the toxins. Let's skip over toxic emotions since I'm kind of on that wavelength. Heavy metals and chemicals. This is just beyond crazy, the world that we live in and how there are toxins sprayed in the air. They're in our water, they're in our food, they're in our makeup, they're in our all kinds of products. I mean, everywhere you go, there's some type of toxin, it feels like. And when you start going down a detox and healing journey, then you'll find that you really have to look at every single piece of the puzzle, every single thing that you own. You'll probably start to evaluate even your pillow, even your bed. I can't tell you how many things that I have switched over the course of time and trying to be healthy, live this holistic, crunchy lifestyle. And again, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming because it's like, okay, I gotta buy that now, I gotta buy that now. But there's a point again where you find that you've built your detox healing house, your little sanctuary, and you're not always having to change things over. So it's just a little process, and that's why this is a program that we go through because I'm trying to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's, and it doesn't just happen overnight when we're really trying to get to root causes of why people are sick, aka why there's mitochondrial dysfunction causing them to be sick or tired or whatever else the problem is. If you haven't downloaded my detox checklist, it's on thewellnesstrinity.com/detox checklist. And that's a really good way where you can start seeing a whole list for free of different types of things that I recommend for clients in general to switch over their different types of products so they can get some things that are not toxic or at least less toxic, depending on what the items are. But it's a long list of different things broken into categories. I want to say there's like 12 different categories, and then there's a whole list underneath each one of them of like, okay, if you're trying to do this, then switch it to this. Like even toothpaste, if you want this, switch to this. I highly recommend that. Again, that's on thewellnesstrinity.com/detox checklist. And then my favorite, last but not least, I know I've kind of hinted already several times on this, toxic emotions. Trap stress and trauma is another way that we can put this. You might feel angry right now at your situation, and you have every single right to feel like that. Every single right. You might be sad. You might be going through a bunch of what I will call crap right now. It's a very serious situation, and you have every single right to feel like that. When I'm talking about toxic emotions, I'm talking about trauma and stress that the body has held from previous, either it got passed down or you had these things happen through your life. Most of the time, when I start to peel the layers with people in chronic illness, I always find there's some type of stress that happened in their life and that could have spiraled into this type of illness that they're dealing with. Trap stress and trauma messes up our biofield, which is this electromagnetic field around every single cell, every atom, but also around the whole body. And when there's issues with that, we are literally leaking light outside of our body. So one of the nutrients that the mitochondria need is sunlight. It needs light in general because we are light beings. We are made of light. So if the body is leaking light because of trap stress and trauma, and that's literally what's happening, it's called biophotons. It's like part of our soul is leaking and our voltage goes down. So this is all about trying to raise our voltage. When our voltage is low, you are not going to be able to heal as well. So it's the same idea as the ATP. The ATP, the voltage, they all go hand in hand together. So the key with healing is that you have to raise the voltage in your body. And the most miracles, signs, and wonders have come from dealing with people's trap stress and trauma. No joke. Absolutely no joke. I can't even begin to tell you the stories. Like there's a lot of them on my website, on my Cerebral Detox, and actually I have several different pages of programs and things like that. Emotional Wellness Cleanse, my Biofield Tuning programs. Even when I do Biofield Tunings live for people, I will get stories that they're already taking quantum leaps in their health and their healing. And it's crazy how much this can just cause the body to a fight or flight response. And then now we are more of a magnet to the heavy metals. You know what? I don't have EMFs in here, but let's just say because the toxic emotional has to do with frequency, EMFs are there as well too, and we're more of a magnet to the EMF. We are more likely to overgrow these pathogens, the parasites, mold, bacteria. Even in a house, if the house is energetically out of balance, you could find that something like mold overgrows. So you have to look at everything multifaceted when you are thinking about healing the body. Even what's going on with the sun and the moon and the planets, everything outside of us, the stars, we're all in one energetic bubble. Electromagnetic bubble is kind of how I usually say it. And so everything's vibrating, everything's related to each other. So what is going on inside our body affects the outside, but what's going on outside affects us inside, all the way out into all the stars in the universe. Just know that when we are doing root cause work, I'm literally going down checklist of where's the root? What is going on? What is shaking this person up? Maybe it's time for a change in their job. Maybe they need a serious season of rest. Maybe they need to think about all the different types of products and things in their house because it could be full of toxins. Was there a leak? Maybe there's mold. So, this is the idea of what can cause mitochondrial dysfunction and why we have to look at a person in all these different areas. The other thing that I don't have on here is structural imbalances, too. We could potentially have something like maybe there's someone that has had some bad dental work and there's like a cavitation in their tooth. So, there could be some type of pathogen hanging out underneath it, some type of bacteria buildup, and it's getting into the meridian and then it's causing issues. So we do need to think about stuff like that as well. And maybe there's a misalignment of some sort that could be blocking the energetic flow. What I find is that because I don't do chiropractic work, is that when we address the body from an energetic standpoint, you tend to find that even the structures can start to realign itself too. Now, that doesn't mean that you might never need a chiropractor for XYZ and they're useless. They're absolutely here for a reason. My brother is one and definitely has helped a few times in my life, especially during pregnancy. So it can be super, super helpful in the right time. Any of these things that's on this list here can cause the body to become misaligned. And it is really interesting how when we start to detox the body, deal with these pathogens, deal with the trapped stress and trauma, that all of a sudden it's like people can start to become more structurally aligned as well too. So that is mitochondria dysfunction and some of the things that cause it. At this point, you're probably wondering, well, how do I figure out if I have mitochondrial dysfunction? And how do I figure out if I have these parasites or spiritual stuff or emotional things or chemical toxicity? I created the most incredible scan that nobody has on the market. I just put together all this wisdom that I've learned over the years in this one customized biofrequency scan. So we're going to look at that right now. Okay, so this is a sample of one of my clients here. And you can see how the first thing we're looking at is the autonomic nervous system. The nervous system is so key to make sure that we pay attention to as we're trying to heal the body. If the body is stuck in a sympathetic state or even an unhealthy parasympathetic state, then the body isn't going to be able to completely heal itself. So I like to pay attention to that here. And basically, anything that's out of range is something that the body needs support with. So, this particular client needs support with his parasympathetic state. So, we look at this here overall health analysis. So, we are made of biochemistry. That's more the physical stuff, like on the negative side, the toxins, the pathogens, on the positive side, the nutritional elements that we're made of. And we want to make sure that that's all in balance. We also are made of frequency, and that's where emotions play a huge role. Every emotion has a role and has a frequency. And so, if our emotions are off, as we mentioned, if we have trapped stress and trauma, then this can be off as well too. And then we go down here and we can see what those categories are made up of. For this particular person, you could see how mixed biofilms was completely out of range over here and he could use some support. Now, this guy actually he is one of the worst cases I have ever seen in my life, to be completely honest and frank with you. We are planning on doing some videos and talking about this, but I have never seen a parasite case so bad in my life. And I obviously went through my ringer with parasites and I've had many clients. This guy is pulling them out of his head, his arms, his eyes. He's literally using suction cups. It's bad. It's really, really bad. And that is almost even an understatement. So this has been quite a project to say the least. So biofilms connect these pathogens and they're like little communities and they quorum sense and they talk to each other. And so it's really important to break down the biofilms to be able to get all of these different types of pathogens here. So the interesting thing is you're probably wondering, well, if he has such a bad parasite problem, well, why are the parasites in range here? So when I meet with a client for the first time, I also will do a little bit of muscle testing to actually get more of the levels. When we're looking at this scan, it's you read it in a whole different way. So it's more of what does the body need support to bring back into balance versus the actual level of what is going on. Now, there's different reasons why this could be out of balance. We're looking at a stress response. The technology is putting the frequency of biofilms into the person and seeing how the body responds. And this person's like, ouch. That could mean that he has a lot of biofilms, but that could also mean that his terrain is off. Maybe emotions are causing it. There could be other reasons. So it's a different way of looking at it versus a lab test or muscle testing, which is why I like to cross reference with other types of things. But it is super helpful with figuring out energetically what could be off, and then it will bio individualize the supplements and the different types of emotion work and things that can help bring these back into the range so the body is dealing with the stressors a lot better. You can see here frequency imbalances, brainwaves, emotions, chakras. We got dental stuff. And the interesting thing is, he literally just did a full mouth reconstruction. If it was my opinion, I would have not done that in the state that he was in, but he was really wanting to fix his teeth. So, which I get. It knows what's off. It's interesting when you start going through emotions and stuff, how you'll find that certain things that maybe nobody knows that this pops up in, like you're sad or something, and it will show that. Some people are just really not really aware of themselves too, and it will show things that it will come to light, and it's like, oh yeah, maybe that is going on. Anyways, we're not going to go through all of this. I just want to give you a brief idea, but we got bacteria, Lyme, it's broken down, heavy metals, brainwaves, anything that's out of range in the previous section, it goes through here and breaks it down even more so we can get an idea. He was very confused when he met me of how to heal himself in despair. It's a very, very, very hard situation that he's going through. Then you can see down here in this scan, now the biochemical balancers, we have supplements. So all this, the biomarkers that are out of range, these are all those different things like the pathogens we came up with, biofilm, etc. The biochemical part of it, we have a group of supplements that will help bring these biomarkers back into range so the body's balanced and then it heals itself. So it's always about balance when we're talking about the body healing itself. How do we bring the body back into harmony? This Aller Lung Support supplement, which I did put in his protocol, that brings 55 out of these 68 biomarkers back into range. So you can see how that is really important. The rest of them are important. They don't bring as many biomarkers in. If someone was going to kind of pick and choose because their budget, they can opt for the Aller Lung Support because that's going to do a lot more than anything else. We have some fulvic 400 times because there's definitely toxins he's dealing with. A probiotic. Most people are deficient in probiotics, so I find myself giving probiotics to mostly everyone. These toxins really wipe out our probiotic bacteria. Spirobac yeast is an antiviral, antibacterial, anti-candida type of supplement. And then we break down the frequency balancers so you can see how the EVOX is something in the initial consultation. I give a sample of this type of frequency work that we do with the Zyto. It uses voice perception reframing. There's different topics that we might go through. And so for him, balancing the frequency in his eyes actually would help his mitochondria overall the most. So you see 8 here, and doing the EVOX multi-topic work brings about 7 out of the 8 into range. So we've been working on peeling those layers. And the interesting thing is these pathogens have really affected his eyes. He's been even pulling them out of his eyes. And I know that sounds beyond wild and crazy, but well, what they're doing in this world is beyond wild and crazy. And he's kind of been a victim of that, unfortunately. Anyway, so we have skin, and that brings one into range. And then we see structural balancers. Because I'm not a chiropractor, I do everything remotely too, for the most part, minus a few clients I see in person here. I noticed a trend that people would have frequencies that are off, and we bring them back into range. Their structure actually realigns too. Supernatural adjustment is what I like to call it. So I ended up putting a bunch of these frequency type of work into the structural balancers to be scanned. And sure enough, this one came up for him. Back right heart chakra. That's holding back aggressive action. And then circuit training. So it seems like his body would like some movement here. So that's the idea of the mitochondrial wellness scan. It scans through like thousands of things, and as you can tell, it's a very simple report. These categories too, like some of these, I only have the top 10 here. It could be very a lot longer, but the algorithm takes everything into consideration. I just don't want to overwhelm people, and it becomes a very, very long report. It's not really that necessary to help someone, but it does take in consideration when it is putting together all of these supplements and frequency recommendations, etc. Now, this is a sample of his lifestyle scan. The lifestyle scan actually goes through a bunch of different organs and glands and sees how stressed they are. The main thing that came up for him was his prostate. And so we see that's brought back into range when take some time off of work. And he sure was taking some time off of work. So these are the hidden things that all practitioners are necessarily talking about, all the lifestyle stuff. It's fun to get into the bugs and the toxins and doing all these labs, but we really have to ask ourselves, why are these things happening? And when you start to really keep asking why, you're going to get to deeper root causes of why things are happening. And for him, in order to heal, he really needed to take some time off work. This is a lab test, tox detect profile, and that is assigned to me. He needs to get rid of a bunch of toxins. That's a test that gets rid of toxins. So we can integrate some labs into this to cross-reference our work too. Initially up front, I'm using this, I'm using muscle testing, and I'm using the hair test. So we are cross-referencing, but I do like to use labs potentially at some point too. I like to do a foods for wellness scan when I first meet people too, to get an idea of what food is best for their body. And this is not an allergy test, but it is basically matching your body's frequencies. The body is most coherent with pinto beans, basically, versus this is the highest positive here, versus if you look over here, these negatives are the ones that the body's basically like, I don't really want this right now. This can change over time as your body gets more balanced and coherent. It's a really, really good way to get an idea of your personalized grocery list. I don't always necessarily recommend everything that's on here. You always have to look at everything through a lens of everything else, like white wine, for example. In this case, I do not necessarily recommend it. In general, I'm not a fan of alcohol. There's many layers of why. We're not going to get to that right now. But, and for him too, coffee might not necessarily be my favorite thing with him dealing with all these pathogens and everything. It does say decaf though, which in the state he's in, I definitely would not be recommending any caffeine. And most of the things I find tend to be pretty good, but there's like something sometimes once in a while I'm like, maybe you should just stay away from that thing based on like how something is grown or based on other information I know about the client. The last part of the initial consultation I do in the Cerebral Detox program with clients is I go through and do a 25 to 30-minute session on the EVOX. And so we do a scan where we see these different types of statements and see what is the most out of range. And I did this particularly for the eyes because on the mitochondrial wellness scan, it showed up as he needed to work on his eyes for the EVOX to help balance his body out. We go through all these different statements. I'm doing this multi-topic, so it is a little bit of a process of how you go through all this. But basically, in general, you can see how this statement here, it's okay for me to want money and I do want it. That one is pretty out of range. So something about that statement, if he did this on the EVOX, he'd be able to balance out frequency in his body. This is what the Zyto hand cradle looks like. And when you're doing the scans, you just put your hand on this cradle. And then in the mitochondria scan, it will imprint frequencies from the hand cradle in water. So we just put the cup right in front of it, and then it imprints the frequencies of the top 10 things that are off. And then we also will use this in the EVOX. And as we're going through the program, it will to the T bio individualize the frequencies that your body needs for each of those different things that we're going through. And it will put the frequencies right back in your hand. At some points, we charge up our water as well too. So we're looking at things at all these different layers here. And as you can tell from the story I told you in the beginning, like there's a reason. There's a reason why we have to think about these things. You have to be root cause detectives on all these different layers to be able to get the body back in the balance because we have become so disconnected from nature. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have all this disease. Here is an idea of the muscle testing that we do in the consultation as well. As I mentioned, each type of test, you're going to be looking at things through a different lens. And so I still find that even though we don't always need to muscle test every single thing in this kit, I do like doing a group of them. So instead of all the parasites, I'm looking at a general idea of how bad this is on a scale of 1 to 1,000. I can kind of track and trace in that way too. So you can see those are the couple things we do. Zonulin is a big one that I ended up adding to my list here at some point when I was trying to figure out my husband's gut challenges. He ended up doing this gut test, and the only information that seemed valuable on that, because nothing else was really showing up, was the fact that he had a massive leaky gut. So zonulin is a great marker to figure out if you have a leaky gut. I would say most people probably do. If you have extreme challenges with your gut, then you probably have a worse leaky gut. But it's nice to track and trace that too, so we can take the appropriate action to be able to heal the leaky gut. You can see how there's different recommendations with the food, lifestyle recommendations. I always recommend enemas and implants. We got to get that stuff out. PMF therapy is so important in my opinion too. That's another video for another time. A bunch of different things you consider with his lifestyle. And then here's the supplements. And if you remember some of the ones that we were talking about from the scan, I tend to put those inside here, but I still bio individualize it. So I muscle test all the different amounts of when the person should take this, how they should take it, how much their body can handle. There's all kinds of different questions I'm asking when we're muscle testing and putting the protocol together. And I might even add other things depending on what the case is calling for. And then you can see how this person gets a nice little chart here too. of how to take everything. So it's easy. It's easy as long as you're willing to take your supplements at least. I realize in my work that not everybody wants to take supplements for some reason. And I'm always like, why? Like, I couldn't wait to buy them when I actually had the money to. But everyone has their own challenges. So apparently that wasn't mine. I just couldn't wait. I'm like, how can I get money to get my supplements when I first started learning about all this stuff? So that's the idea of how we tie that all in. And I will send the hair test, and this is information that we'll get for a longer duration of time. So a hair test is like a 3-month scan of how your tissues are doing versus all this other stuff is more so on the spot. It's just a nice way that we can cross-reference our work. You can track and trace things with the lab too. I love looking at the hair test for adrenals, for your thyroid especially. You could see things like toxins show up on there, but it's only what's being pushed out versus right now I'm getting an on the spot idea, as you can see in the beginning here, of okay, this is where we're at right now. We might do some other labs. Actually, this guy wanted every single thing. He's like, I need to know what is going on. So it's like, okay, we could do all these labs too. I don't have clients all the time that want to do every single thing financially wise. It can be taxing. We're waiting for some labs to come in too to just kind of cross reference some of these things like the chemicals, the toxins, the mycotoxins, the mold. He really, really wants some answers here. And just wants to kind of cross his T's and dot his I's. So, which I don't blame him with this situation we're going through. So that is the idea of that. When someone first enters the program, they get all these different videos. You can watch them if you want. If it's overwhelming, then just leave it aside. I'm here and I guide people step by step throughout the journey so you're not alone. In general, we have sessions once a month to update all this information, recreate the new protocol, and just peel layers one by one because it's a journey. When you have numbers like this where everything is through the roof, it takes time and it takes dedication. And I'm not gonna lie, it does. So there's no quick fix here. We've been lied to in our medical industry that we can just take one pill and all of a sudden all our problems are solved when we've completely undone how to be in harmony with nature. If we were, then we wouldn't have this problem. So it does take time when a person is really, really out of range. I mean, it just depends on how bad a person is, but a lot of people are in a very bad state and a lot of people don't even realize it. We just accept these things as normal. I'm here. I'm here to walk the client through the journey. I completely empathize as you understand now. Why I empathize? Because I've been there, my family's been there, my husband's been there. Many of my clients have seen incredible results and these numbers get to zero. They feel so much better. And so sometimes we don't even do labs because all the Zyto stuff and the frequency work and hair testing is enough. I will say that getting rid of the trapped stress and trauma, I know I've mentioned it a few times, but it is absolutely crucial. And so this is why I give a taste to my clients in the beginning of what this is like, because I just noticed that you're just going to spin yourself in circles, just like I was chasing bugs. You're energized by chaos. So if our body is vibrating in chaos because of this trap, stress, and trauma or other lifestyle or relational things that are going on at the time, then they're just going to keep overgrowing. Even if we get these toxins at bay, even if we get them to zero, they can still keep overgrowing, which is kind of mind blowing to think. But they like chaos. So it is very, very important if you want to put the cherry on top of your healing to do the frequency work. So in between sessions where I coach people on, we do the testing and then the protocol work, we do emotion work with either the Zyto EVOX or we'll do biofield tuning with the tuning forks. And it's kind of more like a guided meditation and we muscle test their chakras or we might tune up their liver, gallbladder. It's just a different way to go about it. So you can do similar work with the EVOX and you can do the same idea with biofield tuning. I don't really do too much emotion and body coding more, but that's also was a really useful tool in the past. That's the idea of how we figure out these things can be causing the mitochondrial dysfunction, that can be causing the tiredness, the burnout, the parasite, whatever name you want to give it, ADHD, dementia, cancer, always goes back to mitochondrial dysfunction. So if you can get to the root of why the mitochondria are dysfunctional, you can heal the body. And your body is one incredible design of God and it can heal itself. You can see here how this framework has helped a lot of different people here, like Tony, who was chronically ill for several decades until she found the emotional wellness cleanse work that we do here with the Zyto EVOX and biofield tuning. And that's when she finally started getting some answers. My colleague here, Vanessa Becerra, does brainwave work, and she also found a lot of benefit from addressing her deficiencies to heal emotional pain. People like Judy pass big parasites. That's a common thing that we see here. Those little suckers, actually, some of them are huge. They definitely cause a lot of problems. It is actually not funny. But you can see how with here, Dana has a couple young girls and we were able to help them with their symptoms. And we had Laura over here who She did one Zyto EVOX and she ended up having to get rid of her medication. She couldn't have it first, and then after doing a couple more sessions, she ended up cutting it out. So after 14 years and in her mid 60s, she was able to cut out her thyroid med. And we can see over here how Carrie got rid of a migraine after a Zyto EVOX. So that frequency work is so, so, so key in this healing process. You can see how fasting even helped her as well too with E3 Live, which I absolutely love and think it's an incredible thing, especially if you're going to fast. My client over here, Phoebe, her period started lengthening and the normal length, I should say. So her hormones started getting balanced as we were getting rid of toxins like lead. And then you could see Christina, her son, who wasn't really talking. He was a little boy, and they were thinking he might be autistic, but we started detoxing him, and all of a sudden she started seeing signs and symptoms that he was actually maybe not as autistic as they thought. And Mackenzie had a chronic ear pain and earache. Eventually, we got to some parasite stuff and mold and a lot of emotion work, and we were able to clear a lot of the different types of symptoms on many different levels that she was dealing with. So these are just some of the various people that I've had success with this type of framework here and coaching and doing all the 9 yards of the different things that we offer here in the Cerebral Detox program. I hope this was all super helpful for you to understand what could be causing you to be burnout, fatigued, and any other list of disease that a doctor might give you a name for. It always goes back to mitochondrial dysfunction. And I hope you have some hope that there are ways that we can figure out what the root causes are. And just know that you're not alone. There's so many people that are suffering. I was one of them. My husband was one of them. My parents, my dad died of cancer, and I had other family members that have been close with cancer. And so it is really seriously near and dear to my heart to help you if you want to be helped. So if you feel led to dive deeper in your healing journey, if you feel like this kind of work is right for you, then go ahead and check out the Cerebral Detox link below. You can book your initial consultation. If you do have a couple more questions before getting started, if you don't see all them answered on the website, or if you just need me to give you a little nudge, like you're going to be okay, because sometimes I know people need that. There's a 15-minute call that you can schedule for free all the way at the end of the page. And I would be happy to chat with you before getting started. So, again, just remember you're not alone. I understand so many other people are there and they get it too. But I do want to leave you with this: there is hope and there are solutions for you to be healed. And I just want you to rest on that and just trust on that and just keep praying and seeking and trying and going after your healing because you matter. All right, take care. God bless.